10. Mental traps. Keeping you stuck in the exact same place. You are not stuck because you are incapable. Most people are stuck because their minds have become highly efficient at one thing, protecting them from discomfort, and that protection slowly turns into stagnation. You wake up, think the same thoughts, repeat the same habits, avoid the same risks, and end the day in exactly the same emotional position you started. Not because you are weak, not because you are broken, but because your mind has learned to treat familiarity as safety, even when familiarity is quietly ruining your life. That is the real trap. Not failure, not pain, not even fear itself. The real trap is when your mind becomes so committed to keeping you comfortable that it starts sabotaging your growth while convincing you that it is helping you. Today, I want to show you 10 mental traps that keep people intelligent, ambitious, and capable trapped in exactly the same place for years. And if you stay with me until the end, you may realize that the reason your life has not changed is not lack of potential. It is the invisible structure of your thinking. The first trap is the comfort of the familiar. The human brain does not naturally chase growth. It chases predictability. It prefers the known, even when the known is mediocre, draining, or unfulfilling. That is why so many people stay in routines that have already proven they do not work. They stay in jobs that crush them. They stay in relationships that slowly erode them. They stay in habits that make them weaker. They stay in environments that shrink them, and they call it stability. But stability and stagnation can look almost identical from the inside. The mind tells you, stay here. At least you know what to expect. And so, you remain in the same emotional room, breathing the same air, wondering why your life has not changed. The second trap is the fear of loss. Many people do not avoid change because they hate progress. They avoid change because they are terrified of losing what they already have, even when what they have is small, even when what they have is painful, even when what they have is slowly destroying them. The brain feels loss more intensely than gain. That means the possibility of losing comfort, identity, approval, or control can feel far more threatening than the possibility of gaining freedom. So the person stays. They stay in the dead end. They stay in the relationship. They stay in the mediocre cycle, not because it is good, because it is familiar. And familiarity is one of the most powerful cages ever built. The third trap is the sunk cost illusion. This is one of the most dangerous forms of self-deception. You have already invested too much time, energy, money, or emotion into something that no longer serves you. So now you feel obligated to continue. You think, I have come too far to stop now. But that is exactly how people waste their future trying to justify their past. The truth is simple. What has already been spent cannot be recovered. The years are gone. The energy is gone. The opportunity is gone. The only question that matters now is whether continuing still makes sense. But the ego hates that question, because the ego would rather keep losing than admit it made a mistake. So people stay trapped in failing situations just to avoid facing the humiliation of leaving them. The fourth trap is self-sabotage. This is where things get darker. Self-sabotage is what happens when you start to rise and then suddenly do something to pull yourself back down. You procrastinate when the opportunity is real. You disappear when momentum is building. You create drama when things begin to improve. You abandon discipline the moment it starts to work, and then you act confused about why your life never changes. But self-sabotage is rarely random. Often, it is fear in disguise. Fear of responsibility, fear of visibility, fear of success, fear of becoming someone who can no longer hide behind excuses. Because improving your life is not just about getting more. It is about becoming different. And becoming different means the old version of you has to die. That is why some people destroy their progress the moment it starts to matter. The fifth trap is a rigid identity. Some people are not trapped by what they do. They are trapped by what they believe they are. They say things like, "I am just not that kind of person," as if that statement explains everything, as if that statement gives them permission to remain unchanged, as if identity were fixed instead of shaped by repetition, environment, pain, and habit. But the truth is, most identities are built from old reactions, old wounds, old decisions, old patterns. And when someone refuses to question their identity, they also refuse to evolve beyond it. They defend their limitations like a religion. They protect their weakness like a personality trait. And they call resistance knowing themselves. But knowing yourself should never mean surrendering to the smallest version of yourself. The sixth trap is all or nothing thinking. This one destroys a lot of people quietly. They believe that if they cannot do everything perfectly, then nothing matters. If they cannot transform overnight, they give up. If they make one mistake, they decide they failed. If the result is not immediate, they conclude the effort was useless. This kind of thinking is brutal because it makes progress feel invisible. It turns imperfect action into disappointment. It turns a slow climb into a fake defeat. It turns learning into shame. But real growth is not clean. It is messy. It is inconsistent at first. It is full of awkward steps and partial wins. And people who cannot tolerate the middle phase will never survive long enough to reach the breakthrough. The seventh trap is emotional procrastination. This is not simply laziness. It is avoidance. It is the habit of postponing action until you feel ready, calm, confident, inspired, or certain. But those conditions rarely come first. They usually come after action. The mind says, later. Later when the timing is better. Later when I feel stronger. Later when I have more clarity. Later when life calms down. And later slowly becomes never. Emotional procrastination is one of the most effective ways to waste a life while still feeling productive in your own mind. Because you are not doing nothing. You are mentally preparing, researching, planning, thinking, waiting. But waiting is not movement, and preparation without execution is just disguised fear. The eighth trap is toxic comparison. When you constantly measure your life against the highlight reel of other people, you lose your own direction. You start thinking you are behind. You start believing your progress is too slow. You start feeling inferior for taking longer than someone else. But comparison is usually dishonest. You do not see their fear. You do not see their losses. You do not see their private chaos. You only see the polished result. And while you are staring at other people's outcomes, you are failing to build your own. Comparison destroys focus. And without focus, even strong people become weak. Because attention is energy. And wherever your attention goes, your life eventually follows. The ninth trap is rationalization. This is when the mind creates elegant excuses to avoid telling the truth. You do not say, "I am afraid." You say, "It is not the right time." You do not say, "I do not trust myself." You say, "I need more information." You do not say, "I do not have discipline." You say, "The circumstances are difficult." Sometimes those reasons are partly true, but often they are only polished excuses. The mind is brilliant at protecting the ego. It can build a convincing story for almost any form of inaction. It can make cowardice sound strategic. It can make avoidance sound mature. It can make surrender sound wise. That is why some people spend years defending the very decisions that are ruining them. They are not honest with themselves, and without honesty, there is no transformation. The 10th trap is attachment to familiar pain. This is the most brutal one. Some people are not actually addicted to comfort. They are addicted to what they already know, even if what they know hurts them, even if what they know limits them, even if what they know keeps them small. They stay in the same relationship because the chaos feels normal. They stay in the same job because suffering has become routine. They stay in the same life because uncertainty feels more dangerous than pain. And this is how powerful people end up living weak lives. Not because they cannot change, but because they have become emotionally loyal to the very cage that keeps them trapped. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar freedom. That is the real issue. And once you understand that, you start seeing why so many people remain stuck for years. Not because they do not want better, but because they have trained themselves to fear the cost of change more than the cost of staying the same. Now, look at the pattern. All 10 traps have something in common. They do not attack you directly. They do not arrive looking like enemies. They arrive looking like logic, like patience, like caution, like self-awareness, like realism, like being practical. But the result is always the same. You stay in the same place. You repeat the same cycle. You waste the same years. And one day, you wake up and realize that time did not fail you. Your thinking did. That is the hard truth. Not every delay is destiny. Not every pause is wisdom. Not every excuse is valid. Sometimes the problem is not that life is moving too slowly. Sometimes the problem is that you are protecting the very patterns that keep you powerless. So what now? You stop romanticizing comfort. You stop confusing fear with intelligence. You stop calling your excuses strategy. You stop respecting the version of yourself that only knows how to survive. And you start demanding more from your mind. Not because it will be easy, but because the price of staying the same is higher than most people are willing to admit. The truth is, your life will never change in a meaningful way until your standards become stronger than your fears, until your discipline becomes stronger than your emotions, until your vision becomes stronger than your excuses, until your future matters more to you than your comfort. And that is where real power begins. Not in motivation, not in fantasy, not in hope alone. Power begins the moment you stop negotiating with the habits that are keeping you weak, because the mind that traps you is also the mind that can free you. But only if you stop obeying it blindly, only if you start questioning the patterns, only if you become dangerous to your own excuses, only if you decide that your life will no longer be ruled by the habits of fear. If this video hit something real inside you, subscribe to the channel, because this is where we break the psychology behind power, self-control, and hidden human behavior. Like this video if you are done staying stuck, and share it with someone who needs to hear the truth before they waste another year in the same place.